Hey guys, Valentine here. I just got back from work. The sun's coming down, so pretty soon you won't be able to see me. So let's just try to create really quick an inspector script, sort of very quick one, that will go in and it will find any sort of components you want to stick in your inspector as an exposed field. In this case, I'm just going to drop in a bunch of crazy cylinders, and those cylinders are going to be found dynamically. So that is what we're doing. In the beginning, I shall have a folder called code. Within the code, what I want to do now is create an interface. And interface are kind of like a contract. It means that stuff that a class has to do that is going to be guaranteed from anything that what so-called implements this interface. So we've got all this, right? We don't really need any of this, honestly. I'm going to delete all of this. This doesn't even need to be a mono behavior. I'm going to call this public interface I find vars. And that's it. The only thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a method, and I'm just going to do void find vars, and that's all I'm going to do. Notice I'm not even declaring a body for this method here. I'm just leaving it as is. Okay, great. So now we want the cylinders, right? We must have the cylinders. So of course, you know, as normally we create a cylinder manager. Who wouldn't? Cylinder manager is also going to be a fairly primitive script. Here we are. And cylinder manager is going to have a serialized field, not a public field, serialized field. We only want to see this in the inspector. Private renderer cylinders. Normally I would use a list, but in this case, whatever. Then I'm going to say, okay, well that's great, but what about this find vars business? Good question. And this is how you implement stuff. You go in here, you just type in comma, I find vars. This is not a class, this is an interface. You cannot have multiple inheritance in C#. Now, your mileage may vary as to how you can actually implement this or just add the functions for all of this. Visual Studio, right-click, in MonoDevelop, right-click. VS Code actually does not do this well. There's some plugins for it though. But in my case, I'm using Writer. Totally awesome. So I can just use Alt-Enter and I find it. Otherwise, you can also just go in and type it in. So public void find vars. That'll work too. Okay, so find vars is going to do this. Cylinders equals get components in children of type renderer. Okay, yeah. Okay, and that's we've got that, and now we are going to create a third script that's called find vars invoker. And the find vars invoker, what it's going to do is that it's going to go through the children and invoke the I find vars attribute. So first of all, attribute context menu. This is going to give us a little bit of a thing. We can go in the inspector and we can fire off a function. Go through all the children, invoke find vars function or method, whatever. And great. So now we need to create a function. Void find all find vars and invoke. Great. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to create a I find vars array. Normally, like I said, a list, but whatever. I find varses. It gave me a suggestion, but then it changed its mind. I find varses. It's a great name. If I find varses, no, that's not it. I find varses is get components in children. ifindVars. So even though that script is called cylinder manager, because it implements this ifindVars interface, we can find it. This is very handy because now I'm going to go in and got a little too passionate. I'm going to create a for each loop, and ifindVars, and in this case, variable is going to be ifindVars, and ifindVars member. And great, so in this case we're going to go to, because we already know that that's the one, ifindVars member.findVars, because we know that it implements it because it's in the interface. So whatever has the interface will have these implemented. Okay, awesome. So we've got these interface, we've got the cylinder manager which implements it and looks for the renderer, and we've got this which will go through all of its children and invoke this ifindVars variable. Okay, cool. So let's set up a simple scene. Create empty cylinder manager. Create a maddening amount of cylinders. Drop this cylinder manager on it. Cylinders, size 0. We're going to drag nothing in here. Everything is going to be dynamic. And now we are going to have another game object. And we're going to be calling this findVars invoker, and add this script here. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to go in through here, and I can just watch stuff happen. I've got this little thing here. Go through all the children, findVars, and look at that, cylinder manager, and I've got all of these assigned. If I go in for some reason, like one of these I just deleted, so missing renderer, we're gonna get a huge pointer error, terrible. Normally, of course, use DI, these will be things resolved, but you can't do DI for everything. So, voila, now this has gotten corrected itself. Another great thing about this is that I can also have a variety of cylinder managers. Actually, let's create one that doesn't have any of these assigned. Let's it's going to have 9, but it's really going to have 2, and this one. But like all of these are missing, right? Doesn't matter. ifindVars will solve all of these problems. Go through all the children, findVars. There, voila, all of this is done. Final words. Bitstrap is also a great alternative to just basically quickly hook up buttons and do a bunch of other stuff. So shout out to them. And any other methods that you want to implement into here and how to actually find them, you can do that as well. But you're doing things in the inspector, so not everything will work. But the advantages of this is that it won't be done in runtime, and it'll be done beforehand. And if it breaks, you can always go through everything and make sure that all of the variables are there, just with this little method. Okay guys, that's it. See you next time.